Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be our Q2 goals update video, and what we do in this series is I just talk about my own personal goals, right? So I talk about the plan that I have, what I'm doing, what's working, what's not working, and kind of trends that I'm following, and just overall like portfolio moves, hardware purchases, things of that sort. So this is a more personal video. This is a more video I do for me personally, but I do like to share these things just because I know some of you guys are interested. So I do tend to talk about specific projects. We'll talk about allocations and such, but I'll go in depth into specifically what I'm looking at, what I'm buying, things of that sort, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So just as a disclaimer, none of this is financial advice, and like I've mentioned the other ones, probably not even good advice, right? This is literally just things that I am looking at, things I am purchasing. This has no affiliation with anybody. This is literally just my plays and what I see in the market currently, right? So let's get started with this thing. So we'll look at the current market, just because every time I do these quarterly updates, it's usually big stuff going on. It just happens to be that it's quarterly, right? So currently right now, BTC is currently at 65,000, which is up from just a week ago being in the 50s, where everybody was crazy bearish, which is just funny overall, because when we look at the year chart, it's really hard to be bearish even at like 50K, even if we did down to 40K, just considering where we were in the depths of this current bear market, right? But that's where the current mind frame is. So a lot of things have happened though. A lot of things did cause that dip, and a lot of things are causing the price action to go up pretty significantly. Okay, so a lot of stuff just happened. Germany just recently sold their allocation, so that was a big thing. We had Mt. Gox movement. We had freaking a presidential candidate almost get assassinated, so that was pretty nuts. But currently, a lot of bullish things going on. Again, timeline-wise, we are now July 2024, getting very close to the potential beginning of this thing, right? So the goal here is just to position ourselves appropriately. Okay, so as far as upcoming catalysts, it's kind of insane, right? We have, I'm gonna go through this quick little list. I found an interesting little tweet that kind of summed everything up. But on top of that, ETH ETFs next week, Solana ETFs getting announced. So a lot of big interest on the institutional front, which has been one of the biggest catalysts so far this year, right? The Bitcoin ETF kind of started the whole thing. But you can see here, number one, consecutive ETF inflows, which again has been getting only accelerating, especially with this dip, right? A lot of the money was picked up really quick. Number two, whales bought nearly $5 billion of BTC last week, which is huge. Spot ETH ETF confirmed for July 23rd, so that's next week. The Germans are done selling, which they sold it fairly quick, right? It was a fairly quick process. Did hurt initially, but we've bounced back pretty good already. 5, global liquidity cycle is surging, so will BTC. 6, Trump hired a pro-crypto OG as vice president, so his VP pick is pro-crypto, so that's pretty big as well. Senators calling for US dollar backed by BTC reserves. Trump speaking at BTC conference in about a week or so, right? So a lot of stuff coming up even just these next few weeks, right? So it's kind of a crazy recovery. We do have word that the Mt. Gox payments are coming out as well. But depending on your perspective, for me, if anything, it's probably going to be more bullish, right? A lot of those people are actually going to most likely hold, or they're going to be selling into alts, so we might have a little mini alt season from that. Depends on your perspective, but a lot of stuff going on. And then again, timeline-wise, guys, we are getting close to where we want to be at, right? So overall goal-wise, plan is still the same. We're going to continue stacking, right? So mostly it's been through mining. Did get in a little bit harder with a few more ASICs, which we'll talk about in the second half here, but also DCAing, right? And that's one thing, and that's kind of one of the big topics here, is that I did have a lot of big portfolio changes, which isn't very typical, right? I've been pretty dead set on my larger allocations, but there were some big movements even in those cases. So we'll talk about as to which one specifically and why, right? I try not to, I'm not one to move like, oh, I don't like this news and I'm going to sell all this. And I try to minimize movements, right? There's usually a reason I'm bullish on a project, unless something drastic changes, which actually did happen with 2 of my larger holdings all within like the same week, right? So pretty crazy stuff there, but still focused on everything. So again, the last time I did this video was March, and that was during a time where alts were, it was like a little mini alt season, which we didn't kind of realize it at the time, but now seeing the downtrend, definitely were, right? Solana was at freaking near 200 bucks around that time. So this was March 17th when I did the video, and literally Sol was at 200 bucks. Okay, so pretty crazy. We had a nice little drop, so it just depends on your viewpoint there. My allocation in Sol, not buying any dips as we got in way back here, so that bag is packed, but it's just interesting to see the difference between now and then. Still trying to stay focused on not profit taking, not moving, just stacking, right? Which kind of did bite me in the ass a little bit. Recently with CKB, which is my second biggest holding, kind of on accident, just because of how much it pumped. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I really, really wanted to profit take. Even though goal-wise, I was like, no, absolutely not. So I did at least do a little bit. I did take about 10%. Realistically, I should have just followed my gut, which again is, I'm another big proponent for that. Follow your gut, but I was trying to stick to the game plan. I only took 10%, right? I did. Again, I regret big time because this thing pumped up so massively. It went over 3 cents. I did profit take at like right under, it was like 0.028, something like that. And this thing has retraced. It went under a penny recently with this ultimate dip, right? So if I would have sold a bigger chunk, even just hanging on to that, I could have massively grown that bag or gone into something else. Realistically, I was super deciding. I ended up deciding to do 10%. Initially, the goal was 0. Like, I'd be adamant, no strict, no hold, do not profit take. I did do 10%. Luckily, I did. And luckily, I did hang on to that. So that kind of played in my favor. But realistically, I should have definitely gone more aggressive in order to buy other coins. It kind of like spread the wealth. Because again, it did go from being a fairly small portion of the portfolio to the second biggest holding. Realistically, am I that bullish on CKB that it's going to do that amazingly well after how much it's already ran up? I'm bullish on it, but not to the point where it should be my second biggest holding, right? Realistically, it should be probably 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there, right? So definitely a big flop on my part. That was one thing that I should have definitely trusted my gut and just seen it, right? Which now I'm looking at it, it's like, damn it. But I did take some, so held on to that. So that is what it is, just another learning lesson, right? Which is kind of, again, the purpose of these videos, so we can talk about those flubs, talk about those mistakes, and try to improve where we see it, right? So again, if it does have another big run up where it goes anywhere near here, I will do that with just the intention of, again, spreading the wealth, like putting that allocation, maybe increasing the allocations into those higher confidence plays, or realistically, where my focus is now, is going into building other bags, right? Starting to look for those smaller cap altcoins, which I'm starting to dabble in more now, okay? Because that has definitely been another big front. So I don't typically talk about too many of the coins that I'm into all the way, although this is why these like big changes were kind of a big shock. Because for any of you guys who have been keeping up with these videos, I've been started the quarterly thing not too long ago, but I did randomly talk about when I would do these DCA videos, especially even early on, right? So this was the first video I did. This was back in November 22, right? And this was pretty much kind of close to like around the bottoms, and at the time we were like, maybe it is near the bottom, we don't know. And that was a big thing with that video, is that even if it's not the bottom, it's such a decent price that the risk to reward was excellent, right? So even in this thumbnail, you can kind of see which ones I was into at the time, and it's still the case for the most part, which is like Solana, AVAX, Near, Cadena. And one that's on here, and this is actually one of the ones that changed, was Fantom, right? We'll talk about Fantom here in a second. But you can see how long I've been kind of building the bags of those allocations and what they kind of turned into, okay? So back when I had done that video, I will kind of skip that segment actually. We'll go right to the good stuff. So as far as like portfolio allocations, in the thumbnail, the little symbols I have on the bottom, just to give you a heads up, those are my top 5 or 6 coins right there. And those are kind of in order as far as like the size of them also. Okay, so you can kind of see where I'm at. I'm kind of all over the place, right? So yes, I'm a miner. Yes, I'm very big on that, but I'm just a big in crypto overall, right? Whether it's DeFi, just an investing period, buying the coin, mining the coin. It's been kind of funny because lately I've been getting a lot of new subs and they've been arguing the point about mining versus buying, and it's like kind of funny because then you guys who've been around for a while, that was kind of a big start with us, right? Was just making that argument, right? So it's kind of interesting to see it kind of almost starting to do the inverse, right? At the time when to me it made more sense to buy versus mine. And at that time where the mindset was kind of the other way, and now I'm kind of more in the mindset, and now people are starting to flip on the buy versus mine. So it's kind of almost like a reverse indicator, right? Because I'm at the point now where I'm starting to feel better with mining overall and just having that be the overall revenue. Like, to me, this is the time to get that in place, right? So it's just kind of funny how that's changed since then. But again, like I've mentioned though, a lot of those bags are still bags that I'm bullish on. I try not to like flip things too much. Some of them, that is their whole purpose. Like, there's plenty, which you guys saw all of last year, for example, when we were like buying little bags of like the GPU mineable coins, and we played around with those like run-ups that they had, right? Not necessarily crazy bullish on them. They weren't long-term holds, but the potential was there for them to increase. And when they did, we just flipped them and put them into like other allocations that we did have more confidence in. Right, so I'm also kind of not doing that anymore either, right? I am doing certain coins, but it's very minimalized compared to what I was doing in the past. Now it's trying to focus specifically on the higher confidence coins and then starting other bags, right? So another big thing was consolidating. So that is one big thing that I have been working on, and I did consolidate a lot, right? So instead of having 30, 40 positions, it's down to under 20, and I wanted to keep it to a max of 20, which the majority, more than 50% of that, is like small little 1 or 2% allocations into these like lower cap altcoins, right? As far as the higher conviction plays, those are pretty much set in stone, and some of those bags are like packed, meaning the allocation that I have is the allocation that it's going to get, right? Because again, like we mentioned in the past also, some of those coins have ran up so much that for me is just not enough upside, right? So like, to me, I know a lot of people say, oh, the bull market hasn't started. In my opinion, just like I've mentioned in previous videos, it started once the confirmed low happened, right? So like, for example, with Solana, we're buying that thing sub 20 bucks, in some cases 10, 15, $20. It's, again, it reached not too long ago 200 bucks. Like, it's already a 20x depending on your purchase point. And then from here, me being super like hyped about it, like my personal price prediction is like 500 bucks, which realistically at the time when I purchased it was a lot lower, right? Previous goal price was about 250 or so. Obviously with the hype it's gotten, it's not going to be that anymore, but it's not one I'm going to continue to allocate in just because I don't see as much upside. So a lot of these bigger cap coins where there's not a ton of upside, I'm kind of good with my allocations. Now I'm starting to look for like mid, small, and like micro caps. That's kind of where my focus is going to be from here on out, right? In most cases, right? We'll talk about specifically here, but this was one big change for me. So this is, again, one I have been stacking since the beginning of this bear market, and it kind of sucks, right? I've been a big fan of Fantom and what they've done. It's just basically on the DeFi aspect, right? I'm huge proponent for DeFi, dApps, programs, coins, tokens. Big fan of it. Fantom has always been a leader. They've been one that also has the pumpamentals, right? So it's one you don't hear about too often, but it does run up whenever there's big other run-ups, right? So it's one that I was bullish on until now, right? So what happened with me is they are changing, and this was a big change. And so again, it's one thing to have like a governance vote or something change where I was like, I'm not a fan of, but that's typically not enough for me to like fully dump and reallocate, right? In this case, it was a pretty massive change that I fully disagree with. Okay, so what they are actually doing is they are migrating to a whole new token. Okay, they're gonna go to the Sonic token, the S token, which initially it was just going to be an upgrade, right? Which was cool, and that had me hyped about it, had me even more excited. Like, yes, definitely, things are going in the right direction. Definitely long-term hold. And then they changed the script and decided to make it a whole new coin and have both of those coins kind of coexist, kind of splitting the value there. Okay, changing the dynamics, potentially changing the tokenomics, changing the whole coin and the whole dynamic of the ecosystem. Not a fan of that. No reason to do that. Like, that's a huge fundamental change where hopefully they'll still do well. Like, I think obviously the value is going to be with the Sonic token now, even though for whatever reason they're going to coexist, which to me is stupid. They're going to have like a one-to-one migration where you can either decide to go with the Sonic token, you keep the Fantom token. Again, it's just splitting up the value. Like, it's just stupid thing. Like, if anything, they should have just rebranded and I would have kept on as it is, right? Because it is a big change. There are a lot of positives, but the fact that they decided to kind of keep that and the tokenomics are going to change, like, just, you lost me, right? So at that point, I dumped that whole bag, right? So I ended up dumping that whole bag and just kept it and decided to fully drop in now, right? So like right now is when this recent drop, I essentially went all in, right? So all the capital we had from the little bit of profit taking we did and then dumping this bag, I did have extra capital that was like the hardware money, but ended up buying the hardware. That's why I purchased the hardware when I did, and also went all in on my coins. So as far as like having spare capital for future dips, not existent. I'm fully fully in the market for the most part. I do have a little bit for one more ASIC, and even then I don't even have the full amount for it. And it's kind of like ASIC slash potentially other coins that I'm expecting or that I'm kind of waiting for, right? So not fully in, but as far as like extra cash that I had with DCA money, 100% in, right? So again, did dump this bag. This was back in May. And at the time it was kind of bullish after this announcement, right? So some people found it bullish, and initially I kind of sat on it, ended up selling around 80 cents, which kind of panned out because again, because of this dip, I could have either bought back in or just bought other coins, which for me, I'm put it into other coins, right? So that was one huge change because again, it was a big fundamental change, right? So it was a hard choice though, because again, I do not like typically moving things like that. I don't mind adding a new allocation, but as far as like changing an allocation that I've been DCing into for a long period of time, it's hard, right? So that's why kind of the theme here is to not get married to your bags, right? If you see value elsewhere, it may be time to drop. Obviously, you don't want to drop at the lows. It makes more sense to potentially sell when it's at like a little pump or if you had a price target. But again, it's hard to really tell, right? Really wasn't expecting a dip this significant with alts, really, period again, right? So when the opportunity came up right now, I decided to just jump in. Okay, so this was one big move. Another one is with Gala. Gala's the one we've been talking about again since the beginning of this channel, also big into the gaming sector. And this one was ideal because it's one company. They have a lot of games versus one individual game, so kind of fit a lot of the criteria. But a lot of bad news, right? Just kind of like over and over. And even then I was still kind of like, and then the one big news came out and that was kind of like the last nail in the coffin. And that was the deciding factor, right? Because they've had lawsuit after lawsuit. And then the one that kind of had me on edge was when two of the founders kind of sued each other. Another big issue there on top of the lawsuits they've had with previous developers with some of their biggest games. A lot of their bigger games also have not been getting any adoption. Okay, I also kind of disagreed with what they're doing as far as promotional and marketing material, which is what also created a lot of bad news, specifically with like their YouTube influencers. So, which is a big part of tokens, right? I get it, people don't like to hear people shilling, which I'm not a fan of either typically, but that is a part of like the pumpamentals for tokens. I know that sounds kind of like a funny term, but that is a thing, right? Coins get promoted, they get talked about, they're gonna do well. If they don't get that kind of adoption or that kind of push, they're not gonna do well. And that's been extremely, extremely evident with a lot of the Gala games. Okay, they've had horrible relationships with their marketing, promoters, things of that sort, and that's why a lot of even their big releases that people were waiting for essentially flopped, right? And some of the games were pretty decent, but it's just because there's no marketing push, which you need for these kinds of projects. They flop, but we're still willing to hold just because the pumpamentals were still going to eventually be there. Just the dynamics of it being Web3 gaming, I do think that's going to be a big niche. They have the marketing and for the most part there, right? So they had enough where I thought they were going to do well. The last nail in the coffin for me though was Bitbender leaving the company. That was, to me, it's big. They didn't give specific reasons. He's still going to be an advisor for them. Of course, he's going to leave a good thing on there. But the fact that he left them completely was just nothing good comes from that, right? So that's essentially, he was like the face of the company, as far as that's a big reason why I was so into it also, just from the beginning. It's kind of the equivalent, like if Charles Hoskinson left Cardano and still stayed on as an advisor. Like that would be a huge loss. A lot of people are bullish on it just because of him specifically. Like if he wasn't there, it would change. Like this to me is kind of like on that equivalent. So again, once this happened, same thing. Out, which again kind of hurt, because again, this is another one. This is one specifically also that treated me very well last bull market. Actually, we did get in on the hype, and that's kind of the reason why I kind of stayed in, big on the ecosystem. But this was kind of game over for me, right? So, and it was kind of tough because if you look at the freaking dates, this is May 17th, and when did he make this announcement? Freaking May 17th, on the same freaking day. That's why it kind of took me a little bit to like swallow that news, because that, for me at least, as being a big holder of both of those were a big part of my long-term play. Because as far as my long-term, like full conviction that I'm gonna hold no matter what, it's like 8 coins, right? So to lose 2 of them, that was a pretty big deal. So pretty big thing. And it's, again, it's one of those things where if something fundamentally changes like that, you have to be willing to consider the pivot. Will I think they're going to do well? I think they still will do well, right? I'm just not, they wouldn't be in that same tier. Like there's even possible that I do reallocate into them, but they're not on that same tier where they're, for me, they're like a definitely bull market hold, right? They would be a potentially buy on a massive dip if something else did happen. And it did seem like there was going to be potential there still, and see where it goes, right? Because a lot of these others, even some of the other ones I'm going to mention here also, are kind of in the same boat, right? And it's kind of like where I'm nibbling here and there, like I'm allocating a few $100 and see how it does, see how I feel about it, and then consolidate later on, okay? And that's kind of what I did with, actually, if you guys caught in some of the other videos, I got big into like Cosmos, for example. So I dabbled all over, right? Had some Atom, had some Tia, some Injective, Kudos, Dimension, like I literally, and again, I was DCing a couple $100 for like airdrop farming, things of that sort. But that's one thing that I'm consolidating completely, because again, just in the ecosystem alone, it was like freaking 8, 9, 10 allocations, right? So definitely consolidated there. Kind of done with the airdrop farming also. That was a big thing from before. Kind of just unstaked everything, and just, again, because the focus now is to focus, laser eyes focus on those coins I want for 2025, okay? Because again, time is running slim. So like out of all those Cosmos coins, it's now 80% Tia, 20% Atom. Okay, so pretty much went all in on Tia. Was pretty much down to Tia and Injective were the two. Ended up just going with Tia just because I am more bullish on them. But that's a big part. Another big one I did, I forgot to even mention it on here, is I did finally sell my Flux. I kind of been waiting for recently when it hit that dollar point. I think it hit a max of what, $1.20 or plus. Sold somewhere like in the dollar range, and same thing. I just kind of just held on to it and waited for dips. So a lot of this capital I did DCA here and there, but what was left, I just went in on the other coins, right? So like one big one that I did on this recent dip was freaking Alephium. Alephium now going from my skim little bag, which I wasn't happy with. That is, to me, going to be a long-term play. I like what they're doing. ACE is coming out, a lot of bullish reasonings. So I do have a allocation where I'm now happy with, right? I will probably add a little bit more. Waiting for these unlocks to happen next week. There are quite a few big drops, unlocks happening on the 20, like the middle of this month. So I'm waiting to see where the price action happens there, and probably just finish that bag, right? Because I was kind of debating on whether to DCA or to try to get an ASIC for it, but realistically, it's like, I think the prices are going to be like bananas for those ASICs. So it doesn't make sense to like, oh, I'll get my allocation through mining it, if there's very good likely potential that those prices are going to be like stupid, right? So I ended up just DCAing a bunch into it now. If the prices aren't too bad on one of them, like if there is like a little Ice River AL0, something of that sort, maybe I'll jump in there. But at this point, it's kind of like late in the game. Like ideally, I want to be where I want to be at with hardware also, right? So like with Alephium, that's one I decided to go into. And then also another big change of the portfolio is I did start buying more of these low all cap coins, like micro coins, right? So that was kind of a specific segment. The only ones I had been messing with were like the GPU mineable coins, right? Which these past like 6 months, there's been like nothing promising new, right? A lot of it has just been DCing into the existing ones, right? Which I really haven't DC'd anything into, with the exception of Nexa. I'm sure you guys have heard me mention, I mentioned it quite a few times when the prices were down here, just because again, in comparison to the all-time chart, a lot of potential here. Even just going back to these prices, there was a lot of potential. As of a week ago, it did just pump. They just have a listing, and that's why I did pump so hard. But like, if you got in any time here, which I did end up adding a little bit more, not a whole lot, but it was nice because again, we just did have this nice little pump. But the main niche that I'm looking at as far as the smaller cap coins are these gaming tokens. So that's another thing that did dip extremely hard recently. So some of the ones I was kind of already into, I went into a little bit harder, and I do have full positions in those now, right? And that doesn't mean I'm like investing a lot into them. They're literally like 1 to 2% plays, but there's a lot of potential upside. And now at this point, the reason I decided is that this was also my kind of deadline for really deciding which coins I want to be in. Okay, so again, like I've mentioned, the larger allocation coins, those are a lock. Most of my mid caps, even most of those are a lock. Where I'm kind of like iffy on, and where I don't need to, but I want to venture in a little bit more, are the smaller micro cap coins, right? So to me, in the gaming niche, I think it's starting to get pretty clear, because at this point, we're about, if we were to go 12 months into the future, that's going to be towards the end of the bull market, right? It's depending on your perspective, probably around like that fall, September, October, November, somewhere around there for 2025. So a lot of these games, whatever is going to be big by then, whatever is going to be released by then, whatever is going to be used by then, playable by then, needs to be like in testnet or phases now. Okay, so that's why you see so many of them now that are in testnet, that are in betas, because it's a long period of time, right? They're going to be in betas for the next like 6 to 8 months, because they want to release during prime time. I think a lot of these are going to target spring of 2025 to be releasing, right? Initially, that way there's time to build hype and to continue to go from there. So again, as far as which games, which coins I want to be into, because ideally I didn't want to go too much into specific games, just because again, there's a lot of risk there, because if that game flops, guess what? That coin's going to flop, right? In reality, I do think that if that gaming sector takes off, that all of the games will also take off along with it. Okay, so now as being a proponent though, like I've mentioned before, also I'm a big proponent for using the coins, using that ecosystem, in this case, playing those games, right? So by playing those games, getting into those betas, I kind of see value in the games that seem like they're going to do well. Okay, so like for example, I did fully go in on Big Time. Big Time did drop pretty massively, and it's just because of the market, right? As far as the game goes, it's going good. It's still there. It's doing its thing, but the price dropped significantly to the point where I did finally buy a decent chunk, right? I was initially saying, $50, $100 there. With this recent price drop of going down to like 8-9 cents, I went in pretty aggressively, right? Just because again, this is the all-time chart. We are down to the same like launch prices essentially. Okay, a lot of these peaked early on. Some were like this one peaked in December, some of them peaked in March, but like in December, just from where we got in, if it just hits this high again, that's up to like 80 something cents. That's a 10x from this 8 cent level. Okay, so like for me, there's easy 10x potential. Maybe, maybe not, maybe it flops, maybe it goes to zero. Again, high risk with these small market cap coins, so make sure you understand that. And again, I'm not saying to buy these coins, this is just what I'm looking at and the value I see in them. But if the gaming sector takes off, there's 10x potential there just to get those highs, and then factor in the bull market. And if this game does take off and does turn into like a top 100, top 50 coin. Okay, because that's going to be the gamble, is that one of these games will be the next Axie Infinity. They will do that. It's hard to say which one, right? There's a lot of quality games, but for me, this one is actually not even that small of a market cap, even at this price. Because again, one thing to factor in, like I'm a big proponent for like fundamentals, tokenomics, emissions. In this sector, it's going to be all pumpamentals, right? The emissions are going to be horrible. The tokenomics are going to be horrible, just like they were with Gala. They were even worse back then. They tried to do a lot of things to fix it. But even last bull market, for example, some of the worst tokenomics period, but it still pumped like a good 15-20x. Okay, so it's depends on your viewpoint here. Like I've already been there. I'm already in this niche, so I'm kind of dead set in that mindset. But factor those things in also, right? But for me, there's pretty extreme potential here. Okay, so like even market cap wise, again, this is not a small one. This is 347 out of the gaming coins that are like individual games. This is probably one of the ones that's the highest market cap that I bought in, right? So, but the reason here is that number one, the game has extreme potential. It's pretty well polished already, and it's one that already, because this is the thing, is that we don't know whether it's going to flop or not. So like this one is kind of different because it is still in beta. It's not fully available. You have to have some of the space in order to be able to play, which again, I've been in this since the last bull market is when I actually bought my space. The thing with this one though, it's already generating a ton of revenue. Okay, so this one already is a success. Okay, so like for example, this was back in March, and again, we've talked about this. They've already generated over $100 million in its preseason, just from revenue from the in-game economy already. So out of the games, this to me is probably the one that has the most potential because of that, right? This is not an economy that's just based on, you know, buying these skins or buying this or having the coin kind of pump or whatever. Like it's from the in-game economy already. Okay, that they're going to continue to refine and tweak and such. But this is a big deal, right? Because this is kind of like the hardest part to figure out, right? They're kind of going into like unknown territory with building an economy in game. Okay, so it's one of the reasons I'm kind of bullish here, and just from playing the game, being in the betas, being in these early access things, this is what kind of has me in there, right? So that's one thing. Another one that's a small cap coin that we've mentioned before, and this one just recently had a nice little pump, and this one's what we've been talking about, is with Natix, right? So similar to Hive Mapper, we've talked about the potential here with this guy, and again, it's just same thing. It's a tiny market cap, right? So that's what kind of has us intrigued by this guy. It is a newer coin. It's just going for like that Hive Mapper potential, right? So again, a lot of upside, can potentially go down. They don't have the market cap listed on here. Let's go to CoinGecko. Actually, they have it, so you can kind of get a better idea. They have it listed as like 2,000 something here, but when we go over here, we'll be able to see where it's actually ranked at. It's ranked number 1100. So current market cap is about 16 million. So again, a lot of potential upside. Okay, and what we're looking at is getting in during these boring times and in hopes for it to, even if it just reaches like, for example, Honey's price action, right? That would, their market cap, that alone would be bullish, right? So and this is the other thing with these small market cap coins, they don't have to be like a top 100 coin or a super successful coin to have like a 10, 15, 20, 30x. They could just be mediocre their whole life, even into the bull market, and just barely reach the top 300. But they could just ride the wave of the rest of the market, and because there's such a small market cap, there's potential there, especially these like VC backed coins, which again, if you guys caught that last video, that's what we're kind of focused on, and that's where a big part of the value is here. And also from using it, right? The app is easy to use, easy to access. It's gonna get adoption. Another one in the gaming sector, and this is one that again, this is one from playing it. I've mentioned it. Again, if you see me mention any of these games or anything or tweet about referral, it's because I'm in the ecosystem and it's because I sing something there, right? So this one, for example, is another one I'm super bullish on, just because the game is so freaking good, right? They've done like 2 or 3 test nets already, 2 seasons, participated in both, got an airdrop for both of those, which is pretty good for what it is for just playing the damn game, which I was already going to play anyway. Just because this is one I actually do find entertaining, and regardless if it was a crypto game or not, I would actually play, right? So this is 9 Heroes. This one just launched not too long ago, and what typically happens with these launches is they launch, they're hyped, and then they go down, right? So recently when it went under 10 cents, I think I bought some at like 9 cents. That was the drop we're waiting for, right? Because it did have The initial launch is always wonky, right? Because it's whatever, but it did dip down to 17 cents and then pump back up to like 38 cents, right? And just recently went down to sub 10. So for me, that was a buy. Same thing, small market cap. Rank number 900. This is one that has hype behind it. And it's just a quality, already pretty polished game, right? Another one that I didn't mention on here was like Shrapnel. That's one that's still kind of rough around the edges. They're going to have another test now. I skipped the last one. Gonna get into this one just to kind of see how it's updating, and that's one that another one that has potential. I think it's the same market cap range there. Did buy some of that also as well. That one I'm not as convinced, just because in that like specific first person shooter, like more kind of adult, kind of like Call of Duty style, I'm not convinced that they're going to be the winner. Like 9 Heroes I feel comfortable with because it's hero shooter. It's like a different genre compared to that, although it is does seem somewhat similar. It is kind of different. In that like first person shooter, like Call of Duty field, it's, to me, the winner is going to be Off the Grid. So invested in Shrapnel with the intention of kind of getting in the hype and seeing if it goes up after this recent dip, which already it has. And then eventually when that Off the Grid token or Guns token officially comes out, that's one that I do want to allocate in, right? That one to me is going to have all the hype behind it, just because that's probably going to be the first one to actually release on consoles, right? They're going to be on Xbox and PlayStation and such, so that one has a very good chance of being extremely adopted. We'll see what the valuation comes in at, though. Chances are, because of the hype behind it, it might be kind of high, so we'll kind of see where it goes. So it would have been nice if it would drop now while prices are low. Chances are they're going to wait until things start pumping, just because, of course, they're going to get more money that way, but we'll see what happens there. But definitely kind of branching in larger allocations, so instead of buying like, you know, a little $100 here and there, did buy, like, I have an allocation now into this, and these are ones that, because they're still so low, the market cap is so low, these are ones that I will be DCAing into, right? So like 9 Heroes, Natix. Again, it's not going to be something where, oh, I'm going to drop thousands of dollars. It's literally, I bought a small position, which again was like 1% of the portfolio, and I'm just going to DCA into those, right? Because again, most of the bigger cap coins, I'm not looking for like 4 or 5Xs. Those bags are already kind of set. The only one that did change, actually, I went more into AVAX, right? AVAX to me still has a lot of value, still fairly low from its price point, even though it is a bigger market cap. That one to me still seems extremely undervalued, especially in comparison to Solana. So that one is the only, out of the bigger ones, that's the only one where I did add a decent size in, but that one is now set though. I'm not gonna be, unless it goes down to like sub 15 bucks or something, I probably won't be DCing any more into there. That's kind of it for the portfolio. Now it's just still always going to be looking though, right? Especially looking for like, but specifically anything in the top 20, I'm not going to be messing with unless I'm mining those coins, right? So like kaspa, I'm going to continue to stack because I'm through mining. I won't be DCing into them. So I will be stacking through those means, right? But as far as where my eye is at, it's things out of the top 100, right? So at this point, again, a lot of things have ran up. I'm not looking for the 4 or 5X. I'm now starting to look more for those potential like 10, 15, 20, 30 plus X, right? Which, again, the vision is starting to get a little clearer now. And in reality, time is also starting to kind of run out a little bit also for those things. Obviously, the earlier you get in, the easier it is to get into those things, right? Just for example, a lot of the coins that we hit last year, for example, but again, it's because we got in early. Okay, so kind of the same name of the game here, especially with these coins where this is going to be their first bull market. Okay, that's where the focus is definitely going to be. So anything, especially if things are super small market cap like these in the 1,000 range and that have like actual development, actual VC money into them, definitely potential there. Right, so that's specifically what I'm eyeing. Now let's go to the hardware front, and this is where I'm kind of also decided where I'm going to be at. Okay, so some of you guys who caught that kaspa ASIC mining video, whether it's too late or not, you kind of leaked it there that I did buy more kaspa ASICs. Okay, so I did get a KS5 Pro as well as a KS5L. Okay, so the ASIC plan is also starting to change, is starting to get finalized, right? So ideally I was kind of indecisive, like I know I wanted to add more hardware, right? But I was kind of indecisive, like which way to go. Like, am I going to add more GPUs? Is it going to be ASICs? Because perfect world, I want it to fully shift into GPUs, right? But I'm gonna follow the value. Okay, so the value to me all day, it's still with ASICs. Okay, like to me, it's very likely that in the short term, in the next like 6 to 8 months, it's very likely that these ASICs are going to go out of control versus the GPUs are still kind of struggling a little bit. Okay, so the value to me is more going to be with these ASICs because whatever I buy needs to be within these next like 3 to 4 months max. Okay, just because most likely they're going to get out of my price range by then. Okay, because chances are like by this fall, prices are going to probably be stupid, right? They're already essentially stupid. I'm saying that, but realistically, bro, like paying freaking 10K for an ASIC is pretty stupid. Like that our price is already extreme, right? But imagine in February, March, April of next year how really stupid the prices are going to be. So if I want to continue to ASIC mine, I want to have ASICs to last me into the bull market, they need to be ones that I'm going to purchase now. Okay, so the pivot has already started. Again, I did get a KS5 Pro, a KS5L, and then my eye is on a script ASICs. So whether it's going to be an L9 or an Alphapex unit, actually after going to Mining Disrupt and talking to them at the booth and seeing everything, they're on the consideration list, right? So I have not bought one yet. It's on the fence. Reason being is that I fully see a little price war brewing between the L9 and the Alphapexes. Okay, so may not happen, may happen, who knows, but also the fact that the L9 has pre-orders all the way into January and that like $7,000 price range, like that's kind of leading me to believe that Alphapex is likely to kind of combat that and do something about that in the near term. So especially because these prices have slowly been dropping, right? Initially they were like 11.5, 12, and then 11.5, 11.2, and then 11, and then they have it at like 11.1, but some of the vendors are going slightly under that, like 10.9. As we get into August, chances are it's going to dip a little bit, right? I'm curious to see what the September-October batch is, which they haven't listed. They only have an August batch, and then it goes into a November batch, which is significantly lower. Okay, so I may end up just waiting there. Like this August batch may just be tiny and they're taking September and October to produce the units, and then that's the reason the November batch is going to be cheaper. Who knows? I know some places have listed a September batch that is slightly cheaper than the August batch, so kind of hard to tell what's going on there. So once this August batch is official, gonna kind of see. But the eye is definitely now, as far as like short-term hype basics, it's the CAS basics. I was kind of debating on kaspa or Alephium, but it seems like the Alephium ASICs are probably going to be stupidly priced. So I decided to jump in with kaspa just because I know 100% I'm going to be holding kaspa through the bull market. That's a coin I'm 100% bullish on. And I think there is value with those ASICs still, right? So I did a whole long video talking about that. But now those are more short term. I do also want the next ones to be more of a longer term play so I can mine comfortably into the bull market. Okay, because for example, like I mentioned, I do not want to be paying stupid prices next year for ASICs. So I want to get ASICs now that are available now that I can mine profitably all the way through the bull market. Which for me, it's going to be like script or ETC ETH-hash ASICs. That's kind of where my focus is going to be. Okay, like the CAS basics, for example, the only one I'm going to hold probably fairly long term is going to be the Bitmain unit. The KS5L is more of like a number one, a potential hedge for right now. And it's very likely, like the KS3M, for sure, I'm going to be selling sometime once we have a significant pump. So I'm hoping maybe this fall, winter, maybe not until like spring, or once it gets somewhere around that point. Essentially, whenever there's a pump and it makes sense for me to sell it, I will be selling the KS3M for sure. Most likely the KS5L as well, right? Just kind of depending on how well kaspa's price action happens, what the adoption rate is looking like, and just how bullish I am on it overall, right? So I may end up keeping it, but right now it doesn't have a permanent place, right? Versus like the L9, for example, or whatever script ASIC will have a permanent place going. Like it's one I would feel comfortable holding all the way to the end of the bull market, right? Like some of the others, definitely not. Like right now the plan is to sell the other current fleet that I have now. It's getting close to the time to swap those, right? So I'll do a video talking a little more in depth about that, but currently focusing on that. And I'm also not fully ruling out GPUs either, right? It's just the bulk of the money, whatever I have now, when I'm looking for deals, I'm looking at ASICs, right? So GPUs are still definitely on the table. I still do hopefully want to add some. As to what I'm gonna add, that's where the confusion is, right? Realistically, at this point, it was tempting to get some of these 4090s. There was some 4090s for like used open box ones, 13 and change. I was kind of debating going there, but it's like with the 5090 being so close, it's like might as well just wait, right? And so I'm kind of like unsure where to go. Like, should I get used 3000 series or just wait for 5000 series? It's kind of hard there, just because it's hard to say where the value is going to be, right? Because it would make more sense to the ones that are known going to be most like good value are like the 4090s, because they're going to be good for GPU mining or also for like proof of use for work type, like HPC type use cases, right? So still kind of confused on where to go there, but I definitely see value in the ASICs, and that's why I'm sure you guys noticed, because that's where the bulk of the content has been, right? And the content, if you want to get an idea where my head is at, look at what I'm talking about, because again, like I mentioned, I literally just share whatever I'm researching at that time, right? So if it's ASIC heavy, that's probably where my mindset is. If it's starting to shift into GPUs a little bit, then it's kind of shifting in that direction, right? So, or I'm researching just to catch up on prices and things of that sort. So like I'm definitely due for one. I definitely want to do a price comparison. Like I want to see where prices are at in comparison to where they were a few months ago and go from there. But overall, hardware wise, definitely more in the ASICs, and specifically those algos, right? I'm kind of hoping we do maybe get a cheap Alephium ASIC, but it's going to be stupid. Like the longer they wait, the longer it takes for them to come out, the more expensive they're going to be. And also the name of the game for me is like, I want to get it like now, right? That way I can have potentially a solid 12 months of stacking coins and getting that yield. Okay, because the name of the game with the ASICs is yield. Getting that yield quickly, fastly, before the hype. Okay, and as soon as you have that allocation of yield, then it's like on to the next one. Okay, so like for example, for me, it wouldn't make any sense because, like, for example, let's do a theoretical with Alephium. Let's say the Alephium ASICs come out, the AL0 is out, the AL1 and 2 from Ice River come out, and it's similar to like the kaspa origination, right? Where profitability is stupid, the AL1 comes in at 15K. There is potential for, you know, profit there, but I would probably do the same thing like I did with kaspa, is wait for the bigger units because, again, they're more value long-term wise, and go from there, wait for the price to make sense like I did with kaspa. I'd probably do a repeat of that. The issue now is that, again, the window is kind of running out, right? As far as like mining goes, because for example, it's when the past 5-6 months is when I finally jumped into a big kaspa ASIC, or when they started getting like somewhat affordable for the bigger units. If we go 6 months from now, that brings us into what, like spring of 2025. That's maybe 6 months left of good price action in the bull market. I don't want to wait that long. I want to get in now where I have 12 months of stacking and then be selling throughout the bull market. Okay, because the plan is going to start pivoting probably as soon as this, not the end of this year, probably like spring 2025 is definitely 100% going to be pivoting. So instead of like stacking, it's the liquidation process is going to start beginning. Okay, and that's where the mindset, that's where also is going to be a big change. Okay, and potentially as soon as this winter, actually. So just depending on how things go. But it's just, for me, the time is now, right? For me to like, I want to go in and I want to be dead set on the hardware I'm going to have and just start accruing, right? Just like we did throughout this bear market, right? Like luckily the ASICs that we chose, there hasn't been replacements. They've been the king of the hills for a year and a half now, which has played out better than what I was kind of expecting, which has been nice. So far, there hasn't been a replacement for them. And we've just been stacking, right? Those things served their purpose 100%. That risk paid off. And now we're looking at the next generation to last us profitably into that bull market. Okay, so that's kind of where the mindset is now as far as the ASICs go. So again, GPUs are still in play, but realistically, I'm probably going to remain like 70+% ASIC. Like I think even if when I do add more GPUs, it's probably gonna be similar to like what it is now, where it's just a small portion of, and the majority is just going to be ASIC, right? So we'll see. That's definitely a dynamic situation, but those are the overall goals. That's the overall current like mindset play. Again, is just stacking, 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 narrowing down those coins. The consolidation has happened. Now it's just adding into those current allocations, especially the ones that we want to increase, right? Certain ones, like most of my top ones, those are done and set. Now it's just looking for like those mid, small, and micro cap coins to just start building those allocations. And then once those bags are set, then we go on from there, right? But it's just, again, the plan, basically stack by whatever means. Mining, DCAing, DeFi, DPIN, however you want to do it, right? The end game should be stacking coins, like getting as much as you can, taking advantage of this market, guys. Like, it's bull market is primed to be stupid, right? This may be the mother of all bull markets. Right now has already panned out extremely well for me, and we're not even really in the beginning stages, right? So definitely super bullish. Things are definitely going in that favor, but I do want to stress, make a plan, set goals, set like numbers, set like a number of coins you want to have or a percentage of your portfolio. Set those goals up and then on to the next one. Like, that has been such a beautiful strategy that has worked extremely well, right? It's taken a lot of the emotion out and it's just going from it and just trying to like think clearly, right? And it's made things massively easier and make them make sense, right? So let me know what you guys are doing. Have you guys started making a plan? Have you guys done the goal thing? Like, again, that's been, for me at least, has been a huge game changer, right? Let me know how you guys have been going. Are you guys anywhere near where you want to be? Are you still just DCAing? Are you still iffy on the hardware side? Are you buying coins more than anything? I know some of you guys are fully just buying coins, right? Like, not even, and I get it, right? Again, this channel is, I'm just a proponent for stacking coins, right? It's not one to sell you into mining or, hey, mining's the only way. Again, if I fully believed mining's the absolute best way, I would only be mining. But again, there's benefits to both sides, which is why, again, I'm a big proponent for not only doing those two, but doing any way to generate revenue, to generate coins, right? Passively, staking, whatever, right? Just get that money, get those coins, guys. So again, let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.